PATRIOT Act, or Uniting and Strengthening America by Providing Appropriate Tools Required to Intercept and Obstruct Terrorism Act of 2001.
By Grant Phifer,
Jordan Polster,
Connie Song,
and Gisele Bohorquez.
So what is the PATRIOT Act?
The PATRIOT Act was signed on October 26, 2001 by the United States Congress. It allows the government additional wiretapping and surveillance authority, removes barriers between law enforcement and intelligence agencies, adds financial disclosure and reporting requirements to combat terrorist funding, and gives greater authority to the Attorney General to detain and deport aliens suspected of having terrorist ties.
So why was the PATRIOT Act created?
The Act was created after the September 11th terrorist attacks to detect and prevent future attacks by monitoring a wide range of communication and media technologies. It enables officials to gather information about terrorism-related crimes, including chemical weapons offenses, the use of weapons of mass destruction, killing Americans abroad, and terrorism financing. Because international terrorists are sophisticated and trained to thwart surveillance, the Act also allows officials the same techniques the national security investigators use to track terrorists.
So the question is, how are we all being watched?
Currently, the government has 4 basic surveillance mechanisms for people living in the United States. One of them is interception orders, authorizing the interception of communications. The second one is search warrants, authorizing the search of physical premises, and seizure of tangible evidence like books, videotapes, cell phones, and machines. The third, which are PIN register and tap and trace device orders, which authorize the collection of telephone numbers dialed to and from a particular communications device, and subpoenas compelling the production of tangible things such as records, including electronic records.
With the passing of the PATRIOT Act, there have been some many controversies that have followed, but some good things to it are it is designed to detect threats, helping the government rapidly identify terrorist operatives and networks. The PATRIOT Act also updates wiretapping laws to take into account the changing technology of the current era. This could be anything from text messaging to online messages through social media. Also, law enforcement can remain anonymous while tracking terrorists, therefore they can react to the plotted attacks before they occur. And last but not least, it amends both the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act and the Wiretap Statute.
On the other hand, less privacy protection for United States citizens because the law allows for the collection of data for any resident living in the United States. In other words, the government can easily abuse this power and conduct surveillance on anyone of their choosing under the pretense of reasonable suspicion. The PATRIOT Act also allows for the above-mentioned sneak and peek warrants to be used for any federal crime, including those that only amount to misdemeanors. This highly invasive type of warrant divests an individual of their rights to know that they're being investigated. This violates the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, which prohibits unreasonable search and seizure and requires any warrant to be judicially sanctioned and supported by probable cause.
There have been some consequences since the signing of the PATRIOT Act, one being Edward Snowden's release of classified NSA information brought to light major concerns over PRISM, which collected metadata from U.S. citizens and citizens of other countries.
The collection of metadata under the PRISM program, which stands for the Planning Tool for Resource Integration, Synchronization, and Management, takes away the right of security from not only U.S. citizens but also members of the world. Even the European Court of Human Rights recognizes the rights of individuals for liberty and security for each person regardless of citizenship.
For our website, we found a page that Popular Science created that details how surveillance has evolved over time in the United States. This website includes a timeline, starting with the Bill of Rights, when wiretapping first comes to life, and the Supreme Court's approval of wiretapping. It also includes various times within history when wiretapping was used, such as Watergate, and leading up to the PATRIOT Act.
So to answer our discussion question, who controls and monitors the media? Some say that the PATRIOT Act has changed and or expanded law enforcement's powers. Others say it may have protected privacy and civil liberties. The Patriot Act's goal was to initially protect U.S. citizens against potential terrorist attacks. But how far is too far when it comes to government surveillance? The Patriot Act has given officials additional wiretapping and surveillance authority throughout different communication infrastructures across the nation. It tries to provide a balanced approach that protects both our civil liberties and the country from future attacks. In other words, the Patriot Act wants to monitor our media rather than control it. Citizens, however, ultimately form their own opinions about whether the Patriot Act is increasing our liberties or decreasing them. These are the list of our resources that we have used to conduct our research. Thank you for tuning in to our presentation and video project. This has been Jordan Polster,
Connie Song,